Hello and welcome to Třinec. We're here in my part of the country to have another interview today with Expat Episodes and get into the city center with Joachim from Germany.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Let's go see your workspace.
Great. So I took directly the train down to Třinec. It's going to be 2 weeks, I'm back in Germany.
Yeah.
I was here for 4 months. So she called me like, hey, they're now blocking Italians to come to Czech Republic. And I was like, that's European Union. You can't do that. Like, I have a legal right to go there.
Right.
And I actually believed that. I actually believed they could not stop me going across the border.
Surprise, surprise.
And it was like a shock. They took us outside, made us line up. There were 2 guys in hazmat suits, one with a machine gun, one with a measurement thing.
Really?
Yeah. I was going for this weekend trip and to Lviv. Right. So I went there, took the free walking tour, and on the tour met her. Tried to manipulate everybody else. Who wants to go for lunch afterwards? Oh, you want to go for lunch? That's great. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay, let's go.
That good trick. Yeah. That's a lot.
We have a daughter who's 4 years old. I think that sounds more of it. Second one is coming in 3 weeks.
Really?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes. Thanks a lot. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. I was a CFO at a private equity fund and a venture capital fund. I realized one thing: there's not much private equity industry in Třinec. I looked around.
Not too much.
It's not here. I must say, the first time I arrived here, I was like, what kind of Soviet-era construction place is that? Community coffee, I would say the best coffee in town.
They're very lovely.
This is Expat Episodes, when news stories begin. I'm Ian, your host, and I'll be guiding you through the stories of expats in the Czech Republic.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Expat Episodes. And today we're here with Joachim Merten, yes?
Exactly.
First off, I know it kind of personally a bit because I do live in the same region as you now. But what is the name of this building we are in and this co-working space that you're also a part of? Let's start with that to show this interesting decor for the start.
Well, the building is Tricia, and it's like a cultural center here in Třinec. Mm-hmm. And the co-working space, it's 2 floors down, 1 floor down. That is CFO, which they opened up, I think 3 years ago. About 2.5 years, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was actually kind of like the first permanent tenant there, you can say.
Really?
Yeah.
So you kind of helped start them off.
Of course. I take that claim. No, but it was really great. Like when I was deciding to settle down in Třinec to start my own business, you need like an office space. So I was looking to rent an office or something like this. But for me, the point of having an office space was not having an office space. It was having a place to meet people. Because if you work by yourself, you work on home office, you can work on home office, you're very efficient. But you never really get to talk to people too much. So I thought it would be nice to have like a space where other people also work, like a co-working space. Mm-hmm. So when I opened it up here, it was really nice. Huh? At the beginning, we were very, very few. It was only like 3 of us. But now actually it's quite busy, like 6, 7 people in total. Not at the same time, but
right.
In total. Yeah.
Well, before we get directly into you, I mean, I first heard of this place because you were coming into this, podcast. Are you kind of like the only foreigner coming into this place, or are there other foreigners as well, other expats in this?
There are other, like especially in CFO, like there's one more German, but and then there's one more Slovakian. But okay, from a Czech perspective, I don't know.
That's still an expat.
It's an expat. Then there was Howard, who's in English, but he left. And then there is. At CFO, not directly, but I think there's another German here working. I know them. When I met Howard, they said they have like this English group in Třinec with like 10 English people here or something like that. Okay. So there are quite a few. I think there's either people come here because of personal relationships, mm-hmm. and then there are some people here who come to because of work, or then there's some ice hockey players. I heard that. Right. They are foreigners, but I don't know them. So I know like a couple of them there. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into you, actually. So first off, tell us where you're from.
Well, I was born and raised close to Hanover. Mm-hmm. Spent there the first 18 years of my life. Then I moved to Frankfurt to study in Frankfurt.
Right.
Worked there for a while. Then moved to London. Worked in London for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Moved to Jersey. Worked there for 7 years. Uh-huh. Was just about to move back to Frankfurt to work there again. And then I met my wife, mm-hmm. and she was from Třinec. Well, she is from Třinec. She is from Třinec.
That's good to know.
And COVID hit. Mm-hmm. I could work home office. She couldn't. So I said, like, okay, you know what? I come here. And I literally, it's a very funny story because I literally came the last day before they closed the borders. She called me, like we were supposed to go to London together for like a weekend trip.
Right.
And I had a conference there, but of course, COVID started, conference was canceled. So she called me like, hey, they're now blocking Italians to come to Czech Republic. And I was like, that's European Union. You can't do that. Like, I have a legal right to go there.
Right.
And I actually believed that. I actually believed they could not stop me going across the border.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. But then she said, like, now they're talking about Germans. You know, that was when in Germany they had also the first cases. And so I was like, you know what? I'm coming earlier. And I was trying, at the time we had no clue, so we were not flying. So there was not a direct train route. So I was looking, oh, there's a bus going. And we thought like, it's a safer way. Now we know more, but at the time we thought it's a safer way. So I took a bus from Frankfurt to Prague. And then from Prague, I went down to Třinec. But the travel was very interesting because I entered in Frankfurt where nobody cared. We were sitting outside having coffee, streets were full, nobody really worried about it. I arrived, it was an overnight bus, so I arrived like at 3 in the morning, we left the border, and it was like a shock. They took us outside, made us line up. There were 2 guys in hazmat suits, one with a machine gun, one with a measurement thing.
Really?
Yeah. And they sort of measured our temperature. I felt like in World War Z, you know, like. But nobody took it seriously so much in Germany at the time. And of course it was, okay, something's going on here. So I arrived in Prague. Prague were people much cautious already, wearing masks and everything. So I took directly the train down to Třinec. Třinec again, very relaxed. People didn't care too much about it yet. And well, that day they announced from midnight the borders are closed to Germany. So if I would have left 1 day later, I would have not been able to come here for the next 6 months. Funny thing was, I said like, it's going to be 2 weeks and I'm back in Germany.
Yeah.
I was here for 4 months.
I think that time kind of put us all in a weird little position. Yeah. I was similar coming back from Portugal at the time when it started outbreak, and then they didn't care much. They're like, "Oh, some illness is going on," but then got back here and it's like everybody's masked. Like, okay,
maybe
there's. You skipped over something in your history of where you lived because you just told me right before we started this interview. You lived in the U.S. for a bit too.
Yes. So when I was a high school student, yes. When I was 16, 17, my parents decided I should learn a second language.
And English happened to be it.
Which was achieved.
So they got you English lessons by putting you in Ohio, was it? Yes.
More or less. My sister did it earlier with French. She went to Paris and she was a good experience. So I thought like, okay, you know, it's great. So you do like these exchange programs where you go like for half a year or a year. Right. And well, you don't really decide where you go. They like find a host family for you. So I found a host family in Ohio, Vienna, Ohio, 2,000 people village close to Youngstown, Ohio, which we also don't know, which is south of Cleveland, like close to the lakes. And it was a really great experience. I was there for like 1 year and did my time there, and told you I had a full American experience. You know, the cruising, the after prom, the prom parties. Midnight putt-putt golf and under 21 clubs, you know, and stuff like this.
Midnight putt-putt. But did you ever go what they called galaxy bowling, where they do the bowling, but everything is neon lights or black lights?
Yes, of course.
So you have been Americanized.
Yeah. It was really great, actually. It was a lot of fun because
it's interesting.
Like, it was a thing because it was always like the under 21 club. It was usually closed at 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And afterwards, it was still early. I was 17 years old, or my friends were all 18 or 19, so it was still early in a way. And you have a car, you can go anywhere, which is also nice. So we always did something afterwards, and then we did stuff like this, exactly. Because in the mall, you had all of that stuff, you know.
Right.
Or we went to the $1 cinema, the $1 cinema. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Those were always good. We had a similar under 21, but they also did the cinema too, and you know we were able to get your soda pop and cola and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
American pop.
Yeah, there was this. You got like free drinks at the nightclub, which was great, but it was just soda effectively. You just got like a little cup, plastic cups with like Sprite or Coca-Cola, whatever.
It's like if you're really creative, you go for that Coke and Sprite mix, and like.
Yeah.
All right, so got you on there. So you came over here and through COVID to come be with your wife. Or were you married at the time when you came?
No. But I always say wife. We are partners. Like at some point, we're definitely going to marry, but during COVID, it was just not possible. We have a daughter who's 4 years old. I think that sounds more. Second one is coming in 3 weeks.
Really?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. But I more or less came over. We actually only dated. If you take the time together, we have been together, spending time together. Before I actually kind of moved here in with her after 4 months, was 1 month. If you take the total time, like because we only saw each other like for like a week or like a long weekend or a trip together, we went to Vienna together. Because it was a long distance relationship, like we met in Lviv. Lviv, I think we say now.
Yeah.
In Lemberg, in Ukraine, on holiday. We did a free walking tour together.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
how we met.
lovely. Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you meet a girl from Třinec?
Yeah, I was going for this weekend trip and to Lviv because I had a business contact from Kiev, and they told me like, hey, you have to go to Lemberg, Lviv.
Beautiful city.
Amazing. It's like little Vienna. It's like little Vienna, effectively. It's a beautiful little
second city. Krakow or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, almost like the Krakow, but like a bit more tiny, a bit more cozy and everything, and but also like little like coffee places on the roofs and stuff like that. So it's like, but I said, don't go in summer; it's too hot. Go either in autumn or go in spring. So I was coming back from a business trip from Asia, and I thought on the way back, like I had planned, like I do like a little stop by over there for like the weekend, and. It was very funny because I literally thought after like being traveling for like 3 weeks, I want to go home. I want to go to my bed and sleep. I was so close of canceling it, but I was like, I can also sleep there. I'm just going to go there now. I booked already everything. Airbnb is booked, flight is booked. Right. So I went there. Took the free walking tour and on the tour met her. Immediately had a very strong feeling towards her. Tried to manipulate everybody else. Who wants to go for lunch afterwards? Oh, you want to go for lunch? That's great. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay, let's go.
That good trick. Yeah, that's a lovely.
And then when I talked to her, I said, like, I'm from Třinec. And I was like,
where is that?
I'm going to come visit you. So like a week later, or a week and a half later, I took a trip from Jersey. So from Jersey to London. London, I changed Gatwick Airport to Heathrow Airport. Heathrow Airport, I flew to Prague. Prague, I took a 4-hour train here. So I left in the morning. The house at like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I was here at midnight. And that was the first time I was in Třinec. 2019.
All right, we'll get into your feelings and discoveries around here and your ideas of Czech Republic and Třinec. But all these places you're mentioning, you're talking about the job. What do you do?
I was a CFO at a private equity fund and a venture capital fund. I was doing that for a long time. And now actually, since
And this started in Frankfurt or London?
In Frankfurt, I was working at KPMG. It's an audit firm. I was working there, and then I joined a private equity fund in 2007. Okay. I was working with that one for a long time. But that one, I was actually moving around. I was in Frankfurt, I was in London, I was in Jersey. I was for a while then also with a venture capital fund in Frankfurt. But when I decided then more or less, when we decided we want to stay here, and we can talk about it as well, why we decided to stay here. I realized one thing, there's not much private equity industry in Třinec. I looked around.
Not too much.
It's not here. Maybe it changes, but not right now.
Who knows with what's going on with the steel mill? We'll see.
So, it can always change. Like Berkeley, it was out of what's an orchard at some point. So who knows? So I decided then, okay, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start my own business. What I do now is I do mainly consultancy, either for private equity funds or for companies that want to sell to private equity funds, or companies that want to be bought by private equity funds, or companies that are owned by private equity funds. And I more or less like use my knowledge in finance, in operations, and help them to optimize. A lot of cases are like difficult cases. I wouldn't call them restructuring cases, but they're cases of companies that are in a more challenging position. With funds, it's a lot of time funds that want to expand, they want to optimize their smaller funds that want to raise more money, those that want to optimize their reporting, they want to optimize their investor outreach and stuff like this. So more or less I use the knowledge over 20 years of working in the industry to help those funds to work better. And this is something I can do in some way from here. It's not so easy because my customers are mainly DACH region, like Germany, also Switzerland, and small degree UK, but like mainly DACH region. But it's okay because I travel. Either I'm driving or I'm driving for like a week. I leave like on a Sunday and I come back on a Friday. So I do like trip around, like try to combine that, go to the different customers.
So do you make any profit now with the cost of petrol? if you're driving.
I increased my rate per kilometer actually after the whole Iran thing. So yes. Yeah. No, but it's
what it is.
It is what it is. No, what was actually more annoying thing for me is I used to fly a lot from Katowice, and there were loads of flights from Katowice and Krakow to Germany, but Germany introduced a tax on flights, additional tax on flights, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and Ryanair made a bit fuss about it, and Wizz Air was annoyed with it, and so they canceled a lot of flights to smaller German airports.
I did see that recently because I've got some friends in Germany that I was looking to visit, and like, oh, now I've got to go to Berlin and then drive 3 hours to whatever.
The last time I went to Bremen, for example, I had to fly to Düsseldorf actually, even Düsseldorf. I had to fly from Katowice or Krakow first to Frankfurt and then on from there. And the other time when I was going to Edinburgh, I had to fly to Amsterdam and then from Amsterdam on, which is environmentally not very good because you're flying like this at the end of the day instead of like, or you fly like this. And so from that perspective, I started driving more, which is I'm not a big fan of. My favorite transportation methodology is the train. But which is in Czechia, it's amazing. Like when I first came here, I still love. I'm not getting sponsored for that, so I can say it. So I still love RegoJet because when I first came here, you sit in there, you have a comfy seater, you have enough space, you put up your laptop, you can work, you get your coffee and everything, and I don't care if the travel is 4 hours or 5 hours, 6 hours because I can use it productively.
You can also stand up and move.
Exactly. You can also walk up down. You can walk around a little bit and everything. And in Germany, it also used to be very, very good, but because they have more and more delays with the trains, and it makes it harder. So I stopped using that so much actually, and it's harder to get to places because distances are longer sometimes. And but if I had the free choice, I would use a train. But this is not option. It's not there anymore. Flights are also limited. So I'm now resorting back to mainly driving, which is okay these days. I can't wait for driverless cars. I can't wait for it. I read an article today in the FT, and I'll bring it to London. Waymo and Wavy want to go to London, and next thing should be Třinec, you know.
You sure you want to do this with Czech drivers?
San Francisco, London, Třinec, you know. That's logical. You can see that at the order, right?
Yeah, you see the pattern just going right there.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, we know why Třinec, but why did you stay? I mean, no. As someone who lives in this area as well, I've heard all the negativity from other people around the country because, first off, there used to be this whole thing against Ostrava being the industrial side of the country and Třinec having the other steel mill and stuff like this. But then when you get here, it's like, oh no, it's completely different than what you think. So what is your experience of this?
I must say, the first time I arrived here, I was like, what kind of Soviet era construction place was that?
I mean, this building itself is pretty good.
I must say, it was like just the first impression you have if you come like from a city like London or something like this, because it looks different. Yeah. But when you live here, you start appreciating the advantages. Very short ways. It's very green. Like in 10-15 minutes, 50 minutes, you're at a ski slope. Mm-hmm. In 5-10 minutes, you're at Jablovi. You can go hiking. So you have all these advantages. It's very safe. It's very nice for kids. There are a lot of playgrounds. That was a big point for us. The main reason why we stayed actually was like we had this discussion if we should move somewhere else. But for my wife, it would have been only possible to kind of work in London, because in Germany she would have to learn German.
If I may ask, what does she do?
Pediatrician.
Okay.
She has a qualification to work there, but you have to the language level, I think it's called C1 or whatever, you have to complete. So she could have gone through that, which would have taken time, or we could have gone to London, work there, where there are jobs for me. But there would have been more or less, I get up in the morning, I leave at 7:30, 8 o'clock the house, I'm back at 8 in the evening. If you want to live outside of the city. If you live in the city, which I didn't want to for my kids, I thought like, okay, it's a different thing, but then you don't have the advantage of like green areas, nice areas. So it was mainly a decision for family. It was like saying like, hey, I grew up in a small town. I love growing up in a small town. And I want this the same for my kids, because it's nice to be able to run outside, not to have to worry about it. There's certain naivety to life, you know? So that was like the main drive. We said like, okay, for family, this is a really good place. Mm-hmm. And with everything else, we can cope. We sort that out.
Mm-hmm. So directly in Třinec, give me some recommendations. I have my own, but if you want to kind of promote this place and say, hey, if someone's coming in here, what is something to see, or place to eat, or what a shop or coffees or anything, I guess?
Okay, like when we start with food and drinks. Let's start with drinks. Community coffee, I would say the best coffee in town.
They're very
Maya
lovely.
definitely does the best coffee. Maroshek for breakfast, because best clubby in town. Then I would say if you want to go for lunch, typically bistro, like Pochotnesi.
Pochotnesi.
I think a very good place. Tricia also has a restaurant, which also has a very good lunch menu.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
really nice lunch menu in Hills. There's one in Bohemia,
And the Steelhouse,
Steel House across the road. Then Echo Burger, really good burgers.
Very good burgers.
Yeah, it's still a shame that they didn't continue the chicken place. They had a chicken place for a short while and they didn't continue that.
Yeah, I don't know if I got to try that.
You can try it on the weekends there. They sell it on the weekends.
They sell it on weekends.
Yeah. And then Terra is a great place for if you want like dinner or something like this. It's a very good restaurant. Or at Vitality. So I think these are like for food. Of course, then there's Cake Art for cake as well.
Oh, I haven't been there.
Yeah, they have now a place where you can also get ice cream.
Okay.
And of course, Kupečkova for ice cream, amazing ice cream.
Yes.
The little hut over there. So I would say those are like probably the key things for food you can do around here. I think for entertainment, you have a lot of things. You have the golf arena, which is absolutely great. I heard it's one of the best ones in the region, or even in the country, or Europe, or something like this.
Right.
Very new. You have the golf course. You have the motor racing thing. I've not been there, but I think must be great for kids. You have the hiking here, which is absolutely amazing. You can go.
So many trails and paths and mountains.
You can just like start hiking and go in any direction from all sides. You have a lot of places very close by, like in Szczecin, you have like things to do. A lot of things for me here around what I can do with kids, like Dino Park, Kiddie Park, these kind of things, So I can talk a lot about that. For adults, I think Austria has quite a good cultural scene. I've been to the Gong, which is quite nice. I really like that. I like Witkowice. That's Austria not being too far away.
Yeah.
You can also I've not been to the new cinema. They made the cinema new, but I've not been there yet. So
I haven't been since when I moved here just over 2 years ago is when they started tearing it down, remodeling it. So, and I've seen it. It's like, it looks lovely.
Yeah. I must say one thing. Living in London where you have a million choices.
Yeah.
You can do anything, any day, what you want. And I loved it. I loved the opera. I loved the ballet. I loved the musicals. I loved all of that. There was a phase in 2008, 2009, where I was going every 2 weeks for something, like some musical, some theater, some ballet, whatever. And it was absolutely amazing. I love that. But it's a thing that you can do when you're like young and you're a young couple or something like this. With a family, you don't do that. I've seen it with my sister who still lives there. You stop doing that. Like you focus more on family. And I think for family life, Třinec is great because you only need one good ice cream place. And you only need one good restaurant to go to from time to time. You only need one good place to do sports or something like this. And you can do that all here. Like my daughter loves running, and you have the big running arena here. It takes us 2 or 3 minutes to go there. If I want to do something like this in London, I would spend 20, 30 minutes to go there. And that makes the advantage of living in a small town, I think. And that's also the reason why we stayed.
I find also as well, especially, it's something with Czech Republic anyway, that even pubs and stuff kind of angle towards having children around as well. And like, for example, I don't know if you know Umatesa, down along the train tracks here, just along the park.
I think I've been there with friends, but I might be.
Yeah, but I mean, not only do they aim for the adults as well, but they've got this great, amazing little outdoor garden area for kids and playground and stuff. So it's, they really, I love that kind of, especially in these mountain villages too. It's like, they know the parents are going to drink and they know that they can't leave the kids at home all the time. So it's like, bring them out. So yeah, I mean, it's a great place for kids and all around, especially even the mountains and such like that.
Oh, yeah, I'll say like my daughter, she can go down the hill, she can ski after like one season, because on the weekend I just put her in the car, we drive there, she has a lecture, and it's amazing. Like I think like how I grew up was very, very different. Like if you don't have access to it, it makes a massive difference. Yeah.
All right, so moved here, you're in. Now, what's the kind of plan besides a bigger family? You said second one coming along the way. Are you thinking about getting your own office, or has this been perfectly well for you, or working from home after a while? Or are you building a house? Or
Oh yeah. We bought a house, and that was after we in 2023 we decided we're going to stay. That was like the point, more or less, like where we said, like when I left the venture capital fund, and I said, okay, you know what, we're going to do next. We're going to stay here. So in 2023 we started looking for a house. We bought it in 2024. We thought renovation would take 3 to 6 months. We would be in there by September 24.
Yeah.
We moved in like a month and a half ago. So
At least you finally did.
at least we did. We settled down in a completely now. I said I'm here for the next 25 years of my life. So
Right.
that's tick. I'm not doing that again. I did that once now. I'm not doing it again. Definitely not. So that's really nice. It's really nice to live in the house. Also, like, you have a lot of space. You know, like, it's also a house you can afford here. I would say you cannot afford in London or in Frankfurt or in any place like this. It's also like a nice advantage of the city. For me, I have a home office, but I will still stay with SKVÉRKO because for the people. For me, it heavily depends also on my business goals. I'm now self-employed more or less for 2 years, if you think about it, 2.5 years I'm doing that. And I must say, I always say the first year and a half is the hardest, which is true. It was hard. Like, you have to build up. It's very different if before you reach out to people and you're like the CFO of an investment fund, and suddenly you reach out like, hey, I'm an advisor. Can I work with you? I think it's going quite well at the moment, and let's see how that develops further. I don't see taking an office right now. I think it would depend. If I start hiring people, I will take an office. Alongside, I have another business with friends of mine in Germany, where we already have an office, which is where we're doing like administration services, corporate services for private equity funds. And there we already have an office, and we probably first will start hiring people there because there we have the space already. But I would love to build something here, but it all depends, like, if you can do it or cannot.
How viable it is for business.
Yeah, but I believe that Třinec in the region has a lot of potential for several reasons, which I wasn't aware of myself before I moved here. There's one indicator for economic activity, and that's light emission. And if you look at light emission and you look on the map of Europe, the biggest area of light emission is not Warsaw, it's not Prague, it's not any area like this. The biggest area of Central Europe, where the largest light emission, is actually Ostrava, Krakow, Katowice region. It's like one big light bulb there. So the area economically is very strong. It's just divided over 3 countries, effectively. Right. So I think there is a lot of potential in the region that could be also materialized, but it has to be materialized. I think it all develops on the thing. And they're doing a lot of things here with Circa Arena coming. I think that's a great thing they're doing here. And I think also, like, Ostrava is developing quite well, and as a logistics hub now for a lot of companies. So I think there's better development for the region. No?
A lot of change after the factories and the industrialization having to venture out, and it's good that they're finding something to do, which is really wonderful.
Exactly. And I think I've seen it in Germany, because I come not from directly the region there, but like I come from North Rhine-Westphalia, and that's also where like Dortmund was not like an hour and a half away, and Dortmund is like was one of the centers for the coal and steel industry in Gelsenkirchen and so on. And they had a very hard time to convert and change, and they're still suffering under it. But when they started converting, when they were opening up to new industries, opening up to new business models, and trying to be more innovative, I think it was very helpful for them. And I think that's what the region needs. They need to be quite open for change and innovation. And if they are that, then I think they can change.
We'll finish off with this question then. What have you found has been some of the more difficult situations coming in, like adjusting between a German to the UK, to the US, to a culture and lifestyle, meeting a Třinec girl and coming in here, and between the Czech Republic and your home, whether it's been the food or culture or just having to get used to something so different, what are kind of the biggest differences you've noticed and had to get used to?
I must say, if it comes to cultural elements, the interesting thing was much more similar than different. If you consider like Southern Germany, my mom is from Southern Germany, my father is from Northern Germany. I think there are quite some difference between Southern Germans. But Southern Germans, like for my family I have known on there, it's much more similar to like food-wise, culture-wise, to this region, which I realized. So I think adjusting to it has not been culturally too difficult. The bigger difficult is to really adjust to it because I don't speak the language. I realized one thing when I was.
So you're not too good on the language yet.
I'm absolutely mój český špatný.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's one of the few sentences I can say. No, I must say it's really hard to learn the language. If you work in English, you speak in English. You work in German, you speak in German. So if you don't speak the language, you of course you meet friends, you meet other people that speak English quite well, but you're not as embraced in the local culture than you probably would be if you would speak the language. And therefore I wouldn't say that there probably would be discrepancies or differences more intensively if I would speak the language more. But sometimes it's also hard to identify them. Like when I moved to the UK, what I had to realize was like this very, very different way of saying things. You know, like that. I always made this joke, like if you ask a German person, like you have new carpets and the carpets are ugly, a German person comes into your room and says like, look at my new carpets. And you're like, mate, sorry, bit ugly. If you go to an English person, you can never say that. You go in there and you see like, oh, they have ugly carpet. They might also have ugly curtains. And then you're like, oh, what do you think about a new carpet? They perfectly match your curtains. So
a little passive aggressive. Okay.
Exactly. And this is very different to here. I've not seen these like differences on communication style, differences of in embracing into it than I had with England. America was the same. America also didn't see much differences. Like when I was there, it was much more similar to the cultural behavior of Germany that I was used to. Then so there's not so many. But again, one thing is, because you said it's an expat podcast, the funny thing is I don't consider myself an expat here because I consider myself a European. So for me, it's like one country. We started off with that. I said like they can't close the borders because the borders are not there for me. And so I think that is like little nuance. It's like I realized with my travels to China and Asia, there's much more cultural differences than if you're like within European cultures. And there are of course nuances,
of course,
but they're quite easy to bridge.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with us, showing your workspace, well, part of your workspace area anyway. And it's also good to know somebody else from Třinec.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you for watching. And if you're an expat living in the area and you've got a good story for us, please get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you and have you on the show. See you again next time.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Ostrava Expat Center.